the eyebrow exercises. That's fantastic. And
Yes.
we're at the mark. Good morning, everybody. Oh, what is today? Today is the 30th of June. It is a Wednesday, and we are here live from Traffic Services. My name is Sean Shapiro. I'm a police constable here in the Traffic Safety Programs Unit. I'm joined by my partner, Brandon. He is also standing in the Traffic Safety Programs Unit. And we have a special guest today, Tracy Finn from our Communication Center, who's going to be talking about some cool technology. But before we go there, Brandon, let's talk about Vision Zero.
Vision Zero, always an important topic. For those of you who follow us regularly, you understand that Vision Zero is tasked with bringing fatal collisions and serious collisions to zero throughout the city of Toronto. If you are curious as to where they are today, they're going to be in 14 Division as well as 43 Division. For those of you who are interested to see where that is in the city, you can go to our interactive map at torontopolice.on.ca/divisions/map, and you'll bring up this fancy dancy interactive map. From there, we can select our divisions. So again, 14 today, as well as 43. You've got the map here to help you figure out where exactly that's going to be. Once you pull that up, you get some information about where the division is. This is 14 Division at 350 Dovercourt, as well as the boundaries. Same 43 Division, and you can pull up this handy dandy, even more interactive, even more minute map. And again, if you see our officers, we'd love to say hello. We'd love to wave, but hopefully it's under good circumstances. So if you're in that area, in any area really, drive slow.
Drive slow, follow the rules, because the Vision Zero enforcement team is there to, as Brandon said, reduce serious injuries and death on our roadways. And it's by focusing on the behaviors that are most often related to those issues. And those are speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. They do a fantastic job. And just to let you know, they're not the only officers who are going to write tickets. In the division, and it's not to say that
That's
we're not
right.
writing tickets elsewhere in the city. They're just simply augmenting the efforts that are already taking place throughout the city, and by coming and bringing a presence, a formidable task force there to make a change. They're led by intelligence. They have people with big brains telling us where the most appropriate places are to be and when, and that's how they get where they're going.
Speaking of formidable, we have a formidable number of people who now follow the show regularly and comment and chat with us. And please use the chat feature. Drop in your live questions so we can answer them right here, right from a traffic officer's mouth. Or today we have Tracy, so a communication officer. So great opportunity.
Yes. So we'll leave the chat room up there. It'll be popping up on the screen. We'll be able to answer your questions, and we look forward to them because it makes the show better. It is better when you are involved. So please do. Yeah, absolutely. Let's welcome Tracy. How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing all right. We've got lots of questions. We've got lots of stuff. We're excited to talk about this technology that is going to make us better communicators when telling communications and letting everyone know where you are so we can come help you. But we wanted to talk about what communications does, what's the role of communications with the Toronto Police, and get an idea of what you do. Because we know when we call 911, that's who we're talking to. But
right.
Maybe you can tell us about that, and then we'll move into this wonderful piece of tech.
Oh, happy to. So communication services is comprised of approximately 300 women and men who answer the call. So 911, but not only 911, the non-emergency calls that come into the Toronto Police Service. So everything that comes through to request an officer to respond comes through our center. 911 obviously takes priority. Emergency calls is our priority for sure. We want to get the help where the public needs us the most. We're the first line of communication for the service to the public. So we're 24/7, 365. And we have a group of passionate people who really care about the job that they do.
You know, it's amazing when people call 911 and they want help, but very often they don't have that information. They don't have the information that they need to give us to help them most efficiently, because we want to send help. That's what we do. So what is it? 911? What's your emergency? How does that work?
So 911, do you need police, ambulance, or fire? We need to know what agency you require first. And the most important piece of information you can give us is your location. Unlike what you see on some shows on TV, we don't know where you are necessarily. If you're calling from an old school landline in your home, hardwired, we 99% of the time get an address. But if you're calling from a cell phone or a VoIP type service, we don't know where you are. So we rely on you to let us know exactly where to find you.
And I imagine in today's day and age, is it primarily cell phones? Is that the majority of the contact we get?
I think conservatively we're about 65% cell phone from 911 perspective. So what we're getting with a cell phone call is the cell tower address of the signal that delivers the call to 911.
Right.
We do get an XY coordinate that may or may not be useful. If you're calling, for example, I'm on the 8th floor in my office, it's not getting you to me on the 8th floor in my office. It's going to get you somewhere near. But I can see about 15 buildings, a ravine, a couple of schools, without a specific address. It makes it challenging for officers to locate an emergency without a specific address.
So I give you an address because I say, I know exactly where I am. I'm at Yonge and Steeles. Is that helpful?
It can be, but probably not. What the public doesn't know is, the center line of Steeles is an imaginary boundary between Toronto and York, or Toronto and Durham, wherever that boundary happens to be. So which side of the road are you on? Are you on the northwest, northeast? So again, specifics are really important when we get there.
And Yonge and Steeles, it really talks about the center of the intersection. It doesn't talk about, that you're behind the building with the red sign or the big tree trying to stay cool when you're not feeling well. Whatever that is, it's not very specific.
Right. And again, specifics are huge, right? I mean, it's great to say, I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt and I'm sitting under the tree, but there might be 10 trees and 40 people. So
sure. And what if I'm wrong? What if I thought that was Yonge and Steeles, but I'm a little out of it? I had too much sun, or whatever the case is. I'm calling because I need an ambulance, and maybe I'm just not right.
Right.
So there's a lot of maybes, and we send help to the wrong place, and now we've increased the response time, getting you the valuable help that you need
Absolutely.
in a timely way. So you have a solution for this.
So we have a new tool, new to us, not new. It's an app called What 3 Words. It's a free app that can be downloaded on your device, either from Google Play or the App Store. Basically, it's a geo-based system that maps the entire globe in 3 meters square. And it provides 3 unique words to specific locations. And those 3 words will never be duplicated in together anywhere else in the world.
Wow.
So it's just another tool if our XY coordinates don't help, if the caller, gives us maybe Steeles East versus Steeles West and we still don't know, we can send them a link that says, hey, open this app, give us the 3 words, and let's see if that helps us any more than where you are now. So it's not necessarily a guarantee we're going to find, but another tool in our toolbox that we can use, especially when time's of the essence.
So let me give you a 3 words, because I did a little digging and I looked up a landmark, the CN Tower.
Okay.
Can you if you type in select threaten shelters, and I'll throw your screen up on there, and you can watch you do it.
So it's select, threaten, and shelters plural.
Shelters plural.
Okay, so you see the options that come up, and it specifies where they're near, right? So we can rule out 2 of those because only one is a Canadian location, and it says near Toronto, Ontario. So I'm going to assume that you've given me the correct string of words, and yes, this is the one that I want. And as you can see, it gives me a little pinpoint here to where those 3 words relate to at the CN Tower.
But as you say, there's little squares there. If you went to the next one over,
3 different words.
3 different words. So it's so specific that it's where I'm standing in front of the CN Tower.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this now, I'm using the What 3 Words app because I'm not in our dispatch center, but using this, our communications operators can convert this into XY coordinates so that we can actually dispatch to that location using these 3 words. So the officers will get a GPS location versus a street address, and then we'll dispatch, and we'll also indicate the 3 words that were used. So there's no, where did you pick this location from? It's all there in the text of the call to say the caller gave us these 3 words. It coordinates to this. Here's your call. And you have a location to respond.
So this isn't just an app that you thought was cool and you're sharing it with your friends to make it better. This is something that has been approved. We're using it. It's part of our protocols. It's an effective tool, and we're using it service wide. So when you call in and if you already know that this is what you're going to use, you can just provide it. But what happens if I don't use 3 words? How do you get that information out of somebody to help them?
So that's the beauty of this, is that if a caller does not want to download an app or have it on their phone, we can send a text link to the cell phone caller, and then they will click on that link, which will open what 3 words on their device, and then again give them the 3 words to wherever they are at the time of the call. The caveat here is they have to have their location services turned on.
Right.
Okay.
So that sometimes is a challenge. Not everybody turns their location services on or keeps them on. Sometimes that's a little difficult to walk somebody through. I can use my folks for an example who can barely use their cell phone. So trying to walk them through how to open location services can be a challenge in itself. But if they have them on, certainly there's some benefit, and we will certainly try to walk them through how to do that.
Tracy, could we demo that? Because you had my work number, of which my phone is not sitting in front of me, but I sent you my other number.
Okay.
Maybe you could text me there. We're going to do a test. It's always exciting. Live testing with technology.
Let's see if it works. All right, you should have it.
Okay. And I did. I just got it. So I get a link.
Right.
And if I click this link, it says find me. So I go and it says use my current location, and I get 3 words: hints, blinks, teamed.
Team, T-E-A-M-E-D?
T-E-A-M-E-D. Hints.blinks.teamed.
Blinks, okay. Blinks.
Now it says that my accuracy, and we are in this big metal cage, says that it's a GPS accuracy of 7,121 meters.
So again, indoors is going to be a challenge, right? It can't do the locating as well as it can do outdoors. So that was always going to be a challenge. You are not there. So you can see it puts you at Dufferin King.
Which is not entirely inaccurate,
right?
Because I am close to Dufferin King, but I am not exactly there. But if I was outside, it would get me within 3 meters.
So in a case like this, we might say, are you able to step outside if you're indoors? I mean, it all depends on what the circumstances are, right? We're going to want to get the best location for the caller that we can. If they're unable to, at least we have a starting point. We might start to ask for descriptors around where they are. But again, if they're indoors, the likelihood of finding somebody indoors, it's not that specific.
And realistically, if I'm indoors, I know where I am more often than not.
Exactly.
I'm at the TD Bank.
There's a landline that you can call. So if it was really a challenge, we could say, hey, can you pick up a phone inside the premise and call 911 or something of that nature? So
and more appropriately, or at least the intention of this is to use it outdoors where you have good signal, where you don't have a landmark, where you don't have an obvious location. Because if I'm at home, I'm at home. If I'm at somewhere I went to, I mean, there's always going to be situations where you don't know where you are.
Right.
But hopefully that won't be the case. When you're calling, you'll have somebody there to help. I mean, I was involved in a motor vehicle collision on duty, and I knew where I was, but I flew through the air and landed on the ground, and I wasn't 100% sure. And I asked one of the 50 people who was surrounding me when I landed where I am, because I was a little bit out of it, and they told me. And there's going to be people there to help you and utilize the people around you.
Absolutely.
Certainly, I wasn't the only person to have called for help. There were other people already calling. So how does that work when 25 people are calling for the same reason at the same time?
So that's a great question. Take an accident, for example, one accident on the DVP or the Gardner will generate sometimes 20, 30 calls. So one thing we ask is that if you do call 911, please don't hang up. You're in queue, and if you hang up, we still have to answer that silent call you back to make sure there's no emergency or to find out what the issue is. So although we're busy, and of course we can't staff for every major incident that happens, we get through the queue as quickly as we can. We go through those calls. Everybody's calling with the same information, but we can't just assume that, right? You might have particulars that you saw the car leaking gas, but somebody else didn't see that. So we need to make sure that we get all of the information pertaining to whatever the circumstance is. But when somebody hangs up, that's another 2 minutes that we take to get to the rest of the calls because we have to phone back to make sure.
Sure, and if you just wait a couple of extra minutes to get through, you may not have new information. The dispatcher is going to let you know. Thank you very much, and you can go on and know that you've done your duty.
Absolutely.
And if you do provide information that's vital or useful, at least we have someone to follow up with. You help us create a more complete picture of what happened.
Absolutely.
It could be the difference between us figuring it out or not.
Right.
But this brings up a whole different topic. I'm so glad you're on the show today. A lot of people are shy or concerned that they shouldn't bother 911. That somebody else is going to call. I don't want to
Right.
be one of 30. Somebody else is for sure going to call, so I'm not going to call. Or
Right.
they don't want to report someone that they are observing who may be impaired or is driving in such a way that it's suspicious because they could be having a medical episode, or it could be
Right.
they don't want to get involved. What
Right.
would you say to them?
So we welcome those calls. If you believe it's an emergency, then we want to hear from you. If it's an impaired driver, great example. We're not going to ask you to engage and follow a driver. We're going to ask you for the particulars you have. We're going to ask you to stay back. We don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. But that information is great for us. We can broadcast that through the city, license plate, description, and we have eyes all over the city that are looking for that vehicle. And that hopefully saves somebody else from an injury down the line because somebody else is being reckless. So we welcome that, but we ask that people are cognizant about what they're calling from. So 911, burning house versus a burning question, right? If you just need information, 911's not the line to call. An impaired driver is certainly the correct line to call. So it's not a bother. That's why we're here.
Absolutely, and to think that someone else is going to get it, or that there's a communication issue. We can have, even if you don't have English as your first language, there's systems in place to allow communications operators to get in touch with you and speak in the language that you are going to use to be most effective.
Yeah, we use language line services, access to over 140 languages. So if English isn't your first language, not a problem. We'll do our best to get a translator on the line. We'll work with you as best we can to get the help. And again, as long as we can get an address, we can start help on the way. The questions will come as we can get them through. But if we have a location, we get help started, and the rest will work itself out.
That's awesome. There's so much here. We have a couple of questions that have come in from folks in our chat room. Not my real name, who's a regular YouTube contributor or questioner. How many calls do Tracy and her coworkers take every day? That's a great question.
So it changes time of day, time of year. On average, 4,500 calls a day,
Wow.
but it can go up in the summer, but we do a large volume.
No
Yeah.
doubt. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people who are looking for help in so many different ways.
So, folks, that's can everyone see that? 1.642 million calls.
We do about
year.
1.6 to 1.8. I don't have last year's numbers off the top of my head, but about 1.8 a year, and over 1 million of those are 911.
So you're saying you have a lot of downtime and you're not very busy.
Absolutely. We read a lot of magazines and don't do much else. Not at all. We're
How
call
long is
after
a
call
typical
after
call?
call. It depends. Usually a couple of minutes, but it depends, right? Some can be much longer, some can be much shorter. We get a lot of pocket dials, so we ask people to lock their devices when they're in their pocket. We hear a lot of conversations we don't need to hear, a lot of great music on your car as you're driving. They take time as well. So while we're dealing with those, real emergencies are waiting.
Right. Yeah.
100%.
And so this is something that I learned when I'm still a fairly new officer, and when I first started, I was surprised to find out how much stuff you guys do that isn't necessarily emergency call related. You're talking to 311, you're talking to roads, you're getting maybe debris off the roads or animals, or you do a lot of other stuff. So in between 1.65 million calls, you're doing a whole bunch of other calls that
Right.
maybe aren't being calculated.
That's the incoming calls. That's not the outgoing calls. That's right.
It's impressive.
So you just multiply everything by 10?
Maybe, sort of.
Maybe, sort of. A quick message from Mary Lynn. Why am I not? My mouse is not responding.
Sorry,
But,
I got it.
okay. She says, good morning. And then Sean has a message. Sean Chen, another contributor coming in from YouTube. What's the protocol for the big four violations for someone with a red license plate? This is okay. This one we can get to in a little bit. That's a diplomatic plate. Actually, no, we can just hit it right now. It's a diplomatic plate. That means that the person who's operating the vehicle, or at least the vehicle, is registered to a diplomat, someone representing or associated with another country, working here as part of that, possibly as an ambassador or for that. What is the word I'm looking for? Brandon, help me out.
Ambassador. Diplomatic. I don't know what you're looking for. I think ambassador is the word. I think
Okay,
you nailed it.
we'll go with ambassador. But the the word that I want is not available to me right now. In any case, we would still stop or deal with the person operating that vehicle. But I think what you're looking for is, do they have diplomatic immunity? And they may, but it doesn't prevent us from stopping and having a discussion, and then possibly contacting their office so that action can be taken, because they're not immune completely. There's still things that we have to do. Oh, I realized why I was clicking and it wasn't working, because I was clicking on the screen that is the display screen, as opposed to. I see we're having technological issues today and words that are going missing. We have a message coming in from Melissa. A truly amazing group of people. Thank you for your service. Well, you're the best, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you for
Melissa
that.
is a fantastic individual who we don't see often enough, at least not anymore. So thank you very much for the kudos, and miss you. So Melissa used to work with us here at Traffic Services and has gone off to do other things. Yes. So cool. So back onto it's a 911 specifically. What would you say is the going back to specifically the app, the three words? What would you say is that the number one use that you've been seeing it used for? Because obviously you've been using it for a while. What would you say is the number one call or scenario that you've utilized it successfully?
So we really started using it long weekend in May. That's when we started using it. A lot of, the bluffs, the beach. Of course, everybody goes down to Woodbine Beach, and there's a huge stretch of beach there, and everybody says they're at Woodbine Beach when in fact they could be, any number of kilometers down the waterway. So those kinds of situations are going to be great for us when we need to direct a rescue team or something to some point at the beach. Active TO with all the extra people that were on the lakeshore who probably have never been down this way, not knowing where they are. Those kinds of situations would be beneficial for us.
And what about I guess the Marine unit? We deal with calls on the water.
So I did share this with the Marine unit before we started to go live, to let them know it was something that we were going to use, because believe it or not, the bodies of water also mapped 3 meters square.
Amazing.
So it will be something that I think they're going to have some use for especially over the summer. So we'll be looking forward to seeing if they're getting calls of this nature as well.
And that's to say, at the end of the day, if you use it as a caller, regardless of whether or not the individual officer has the app, you're going to be able to give a coordinates based from the dispatch. So as long as it's from end to end, from caller to dispatch, it's done. It doesn't matter if the individual officer has the app.
That's right. The officer doesn't need to have the app. And as I said, the caller doesn't need to have the app. We can certainly send them the link to get the words, and then we convert them for our CAD so that it's going right out on the mobile workstation for the officer, and they can be dispatched accordingly from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
We actually have a few more great questions, and I think that they would be they'd be good for Tracy. So if I report, this is from Sean again. If I report a driver for driving in erratic fashion through 911, upon police presence, the behavior may change. Would that be considered a false call through the dispatch?
No, if you're reporting what you're describing to the call taker as an erratic driver, possibly impaired. We take that information, and should an officer catch up to that vehicle, stop that vehicle, then it's their determination on what is required from there. But we're certainly going to take the information.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Another one, sort of.
Actually,
Sorry,
before
John,
you
go
jump
ahead.
into that one, just to follow up, I've heard a lot of people asking about that. If I called to report an impaired driver and I'm wrong, could I be getting into trouble for that? Uh, and to answer it is no. You're giving an honest report, and you don't know what's going on. We
Right.
certainly don't. That's why we have to investigate. So we want to hear if you think this person's impaired or something that's just not right, because it could be something else. It could be a medical emergency. They could be going into a diabetic emergency and need medical attention, and you're catching it right in the beginning of it before they hit something, before they pull over to the side of the road, and unfortunately, people get into positions where they can't call for help themselves, even if they can
Absolutely.
navigate off the road safely. So
Yeah.
I think you'd be absolutely doing the right thing to call, and I would encourage it.
For sure.
Now, in the vein of getting off the road safely, I have another great question from Joyce. Can you show us, or can you explain to us, if electrical wires are around your vehicle, what to do with the storms? My opinion would be obviously call 911 first and speak to them, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys would typically tell when someone calls with that question.
So we would certainly be telling them not to get out of their vehicle. We don't know what wires are down around them either. So we're going to share that call for sure with Toronto Fire as well. Both will be responding, but we are certainly not going to give them direction to leave the vehicle because we don't know cable, electric, what have you.
Of course.
Yeah, and not only does fire go, but police would be dispatched as well to create a perimeter to help to redirect traffic out of
Absolutely.
the area. It's absolutely a serious and life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
You talk about in a storm when there's water. Water is a great conductor of electricity. The ground could be a live point of contact, and the tires that are rubber are insulating you from that. So you're
Right.
safest in your vehicle. Don't try and get out. It's
And
absolutely
Brandon, that goes back to your other calls that we make. So now we're calling 311 and or hydro
Exactly.
for wires down as well. So
Yeah,
and,
it's a busy one.
and that call taker is now tied up with us for a period of time. It's not. How do you manage flipping between different calls?
So we don't do both at the same time. So we're either a call taker or a dispatcher. Calls are priority routed. So again, 911 always taking priority to the first available operator. So once an operator's finished processing their call, they come off of what we call not ready. The system will then deliver the next call to the next available operator. So they don't get to pick and choose. It's either 911 or it's non-emergency. So they never know what they're going to get next. But once they complete that call, they're sending it to the divisional dispatcher who's responsible for whatever area of the city, who then is giving it out and dealing with the officers on the road for the response portion of that call.
Amazing. And you know what? I think it's important to point out to people that the people you're speaking to when you call 911 or when you call the non-emergency line are the best of the best. When I was at the Toronto Police College, wasn't too long ago, they were telling us some of the training that you guys go through, and that the fail rate is actually quite high because it's really challenging training, and it's long training. It's not easy. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So a new call taker is doing 6 to 8 weeks in class. They have an exam every week. They have a set mark that they have to attain. Once they pass the class portion, they're 5 or 6 weeks on the phone with a dedicated trainer. Again, they have standards that they have to meet in order to be able to be on their own to take the calls. Once they're successful in that portion, they're about 5 or 6 months as a call taker. And then we put them back in class so that they learn the dispatch side of the house. So again, there are 6 or 7 weeks in class. Same thing, they have exams and marks that they have to attain. And then they're 10 weeks on a desk with a dispatcher, learning the dispatch side of the house. And the same thing, they have standards they have to meet in order to be working independently. So it takes about 35 weeks to fully train a communications operator. And for us, we don't have just call takers or dispatchers, except for when you're new. You must be able to do both sides of the job, and it takes about 35 weeks to be fully trained in that capacity.
So you could be trying out or going through, you're halfway through your training, and one side of it doesn't work. It doesn't click, or you're not effective. What happens then? You're out of the program?
It could be. I mean, they may do some retraining there. That's kind of outside of my scope, but there is at some point they either have to be retrained or make some decisions for sure.
Very
But they
interesting.
have to be able to do both sides of the house, and it's not a job that's for everybody. That's for sure.
For
But,
sure.
but,
Yeah.
but it goes to show just how difficult it is and how well trained the people are who are actually doing the job. So you're dealing with the best of the best because they won't settle for less.
Yeah, without
Uh,
question.
That's amazing. Now, something else I wanted to chat with you because we really taking advantage of all this communications stuff. We talk about hot cars all the time as emergencies. With animals, with people. Is that a call you get frequently? I mean, today it feels like, according to the Weather Network, it's raining and 23, but feels like 29, and that's
Yeah.
temperatures I wouldn't want to, even though it's raining, leave anyone in or anything in a hot car that needs air and breathing. So first off, it is an emergency. They should be calling 911 if they come across someone who's, not either unresponsive or an animal that's inside a vehicle.
Yeah, we do get those calls quite often. It's an ongoing thing. We wish people would do better and realize at this point, kids and animals shouldn't be left alone, period, in a vehicle, but especially in a hot car. So unfortunately, we do get more of those than we care to admit.
Well, yeah, but that's it's unfortunate. We hear tragedies all the time, and it's not just children and animals. Sometimes it's adult persons who are in there, and someone
Absolutely.
goes in and the windows are closed, the air conditioning's off. Have you seen a lot of people calling where it happens to be a Tesla and it's in dog mode, but no one knows what dog mode is? Is that part of the saying?
I can't say as I know. Sorry.
I'm kidding. We happened to we had a picture shared with us not too long ago from actually our sergeant Jason Kraft, and he sent a photo of a dog mode Tesla, and apparently when you put dog mode on, it keeps the air conditioning and climate control functioning even though it's parked. So it says, "Please don't break my windows." It's actually climate controlled. I'll be back soon, which
Yeah,
is quite smart.
that's pretty funny. Yeah.
We got a wave from Mike O'Craig. He's saying he's in and watching. He's a regular watcher of the show, so that's awesome. Hey, Mike. Well, listen, Tracy, this has been amazing. We got to have you back on again sometime soon. Now, where can we follow you and your team on social media?
So communication services is new to social media pretty much, but ours COMM 911 TPS, and we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We do have TikTok, but we haven't gotten there yet. So look for us soon. We'll start to get some
Yes.
content out there. I myself am TPS 911 underscore ENP, and I also do some tweeting and such for communications as well.
Well, if you're not following Tracy and her team, you should be, because there's great information coming from them, and we certainly follow them. So you should
Right.
too. Now we got another message from Shelley just before we start to wrap things up, and it's, "Hi, not sure if this applies to you, but cell phone companies say charges may apply when calling 911." Which would make some people skeptical to call. Should they be allowed to do this? Um, eh, I imagine it's based on the old call for service for minutes, but I don't think local companies charge for 911, but there may be a service associated with your monthly bill.
Yeah, they do. They do have it used to be identified separately as a 911 service fee. It's no longer on the bill that way. It's wrapped into the system fees, but everybody pays on a wireless bill in Ontario 75 cents per month per device on your cell phone bill. So whether your system fee is $6.95, $3.95, whatever it is, 75 cents of that is a 911 fee. It does not come to the 911 centers. That is a system fee for the cell phone providers. It does not provide funding for 911. We don't
Okay.
charge per 911 call. That's a misnomer. We don't charge for false calls, but obviously we can, if we need to, perhaps take action for chronic callers that are tying up the 911 system, but we don't charge for calls.
So someone who is abusing it, who's calling daily, who's just wanting to talk to somebody, that would be considered abuse, and action could be taken.
Could be, yeah. And we do see some chronic callers, over the years we've seen some.
And that's an unfortunate thing, because when someone abuses, whether it be intentionally or through other issues, misuses the 911 services, it's taking away an operator from someone who needs it, and possibly with life-threatening immediate needs.
Absolutely. Every one of these calls, and again, we can't just negate it. We have to uh, interrogate, if you will, the caller to determine there really isn't a true emergency. If it's a hang-up call, we have to spend time calling it back, leaving a voicemail, whatever the case may be, to make sure. We need to be absolutely sure, if you're calling 911, that we're investigating to make sure that help is or is not required. So that means somebody else is waiting for the next available operator so we can provide them the help they require.
Awesome. Listen, once again, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. We want everyone to go and follow your Comms 911 TPS account to keep in the know with important information being shared. Things like recently, there was a tweet that came out from you guys about the fact that there was an overload and you were only taking 911 calls, not emergency calls. These are
Right.
good things to know when you need help, and how to get a hold of us. So thank you again. And we are going to wrap up. So we're going to take you off camera for a second, but hang out.
Thanks for having me.
I hit that button too fast.
It's okay. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we'll be right back. This has been great. I had a fantastic episode. If you are not already following us, please follow us at Traffic Services on Twitter. We're Traffic Services Toronto on Instagram. We're available on YouTube at Traffic Services Toronto Police. And of course, where we go every day, Monday to Friday, TikTok. We are Traffic Services on TikTok, where we do a Q&A for an hour, answering your questions live, much like this, and also very different. It's same but different, and it's a good time. It's free, it's fun, it's casual, and we get you the information you need. So why don't you join us there? If you don't have the app, you can download it for free, and join us there at 9:00. That's where we'll be. So Brandon, thanks. This was a great show, and you had it all going with the dancing eyebrows.
Sorry, I had to. Mostly for the folks at home.
Yes, the folks in my home watch the show and specifically requested dancing eyebrows all the time. And I'm going to hear about that. So to everyone, have a wonderful day. Hope it doesn't rain too hard where you are. Stay safe out there. And if you're going to be driving, drive sober.
That's right. Take care, guys.
Have a